Hello nerds and nerdettes, welcome back to the channel, where once again we have yet another video with a top 5. Today, playing off of my original video of my top 5 must-read Marvel omnibuses, today we will be doing my top 5 must-read DC omnibuses. I noticed some of you guys asking me to do a DC variation. I thought it was a great way to kind of continue the top 5 series and go into some books that I think are definitely a necessity to read or a necessity in any collection. Either it's there because of their importance or how good it is or whatever it may be. But before we get into that actual list, I do want to remind you guys, like I do every video, that if you are looking for any of these books or any books in general, to head on over to the channel sponsor at organicpricebooks.com. Use that discount code, Stay Nerdy, for $2 off the order during checkout. Not only does it help support the amazing company that we all know and love, which is Organic Price Books, but it does help support the channel, which of course I will forever be jaw-dropped by that a lot of you guys are already contributing so much. So thank you so much for that. But without further ado, we can jump into the top 5 list, which will not be in any particular order. Let me not forget to say that this time. Starting with number 5, which will be the Flashpoint Omnibus, or the Flashpoint 10th Anniversary Omnibus, whatever you want to call it. The event that ushered us into the biggest reboot that we've seen in a very long time in DC Comics, leading us into the New 52. This is what starts all of that. An incredible story revolving around Barry Allen, the Flash, bringing up a lot that has to do with his past, traumatic events that have happened in his past, and how he decides to go about handling them or trying to fix them. Trying to avoid spoilers there, but a whole slew of creators on this book, absolutely magnificent writers and artists, an entire universe and world being built and established in a what-if possibility of a universe, and each one of these characters being fairly fleshed out in their own kind of mini-series that takes place during this entire Flashpoint event. Everyone is drastically different. Some things you would definitely not expect, especially involving the character of Batman and who is Batman in this universe, as well as a possibility of Superman not being found by Jonathan Kent, but being found by someone else. The possibility of certain heroes not existing at all. A massive war between Amazonians and Wonder Woman, and Atlanteans and Aquaman, which, for why that war is happening, is for you to find out as the reader. But absolutely incredible, super dramatic, so much unexpected aspects, especially pertaining to some of the deaths, some of the shock factors that happen, just for it to completely wrap up in a nice, beautiful, tight bow that jumps us into the New 52. I actually was a fairly big fan for New 52 in general. I know it's fairly divisive in the community, but I am a fan of it, and it was such a blast to see it coming through the pages of Flashpoint, especially back then when I was collecting single issues, and a lot of us were collecting single issues. We were so confused what the next steps post-Flashpoint were actually going to be, where it was going to go from here, and to see that it was such a massive reboot was so scary yet exciting for nerds all over the world. But it's definitely a very important story just because of its aspect that it played in that kind of much more modern era of DC going into the New 52, but also it's a very popular story that's very well written. It inspired obviously the Flashpoint animated movie and the Flash movie that's soon to be coming out. You can get it in this 10th anniversary omnibus, or you can get the event itself in Jeff Johns volume 3 of his Flash run. But absolutely incredible and definitely a must read, especially if you want to go into the New 52. Next up is going to be JLA by Grant Morrison, the omnibus. Such an incredible run on the Justice League, really ushering them into that 90s kind of era of edge. You have Blue Superman, who eventually becomes Superman with the long hair. We have a new Green Lantern that goes by the name of Kyle Rayner. We have characters that haven't really been focused on a lot, like Martian Manhunter, really coming into the forefront and playing a big role, not to mention the incredible and somewhat ridiculous villains that get introduced in this run as well, not to mention the most important aspect to this omnibus, which is obviously diving deeper into the multiverse that gets established in DC through the years, especially during the Earth 3 storyline, where we do get to see the Crime Syndicate and the Justice League come to a head, and their alternate but opposite personas really coming to play with one another. Such an incredible story. It's very highly acclaimed for a reason. The art throughout is 90s goodness. Super muscular bodies, bombastic art scenes, splash pages, splash dialogue across the screen with booms and bangs and crashes. Everything you want takes place here. And it's honestly a blast. You get to see, obviously, Wally West as the Flash as well. 90s edge Aquaman with the hook hand. Batman post-Nightfall all black batsuit. So he has a little bit of an edge. It is absolutely amazing 90s goodness, but in the best way possible. The writing is also absolutely incredible. Obviously, this is Grant Morrison, no rookie in the community by any means necessary, and he very much plays with the characters that he's given. He very much has creative reign and range, really playing with, even deconstructing during certain points, a lot of the characters, the team, their importance, and really Justice League was kind of just a silly group like Super Friends up until Grant Morrison gave them this seriousness, and it is really absolutely a blast. Cannot recommend it enough. It comes in this beautiful omnibus. It does not include the Tower of Babel story. Unfortunately, that was written by Mark Waid. This is strictly by Grant Morrison. But there is a Tower of Babel oversized hardcover if you want to add to your readathon here. Both great stories, great run and era on the Justice League team. And that's exactly why it's number 4. And I cannot recommend it enough. This is probably, if not my favorite, one of my favorites, definitely in my top 3 favorite runs on Justice League. Here we are getting into the top 3, and we have some whammies. First and foremost, Hal Jordan by Jeff Johns, the Omnibus. This is a 3-volume set. This is obviously volume 1. Incredible. That's the best way I can describe it. Jeff Johns really taking the character of Hal Jordan, who was kind of somewhat non-existent. Hal Jordan dying at one point and taking up the mantle of another character of the name of Spectre. This is his rebirth, him being reborn into the character of Green Lantern once again, and it is absolutely beautiful. You get so many villains getting extremely fleshed out, such as the Black Hand. You get a massive world building and lore filled run on the Green Lantern, Oa, each of the Green Lanterns, not just Earthbound ones, but also alien ones like Kilowog. You really get to see that world get built before your very eyes, and even more so once you get into later volumes and the emotional spectrum gets introduced. It is everything you could possibly want from a comic book. A cosmic odyssey, I've seen it described as, and that is also a great way. So much new ground being broken throughout its pages pertaining to the character of Green Lantern, his importance in the DC universe. During this time in comic books, this was probably top of the line comic books when it was coming out in single issues. If you weren't reading Green Lantern, you weren't reading comic books correct. Jeff Johns very much making a name for himself. The emotional spectrum being built and really made into this whole world of its own, kind of separate from the DC universe, with each of the Lantern Corps. Obviously, you have green, we get introduced to blue, orange, red, yellow, black, white, you name the color, there's a ring for it, and it's not as silly as it sounds. It's extremely thought out and really just something. I mean, I cannot even recommend this enough. This is my favorite run in comics ever, whether it's Marvel or DC, and it's for a good reason. There's also two major events, but also another event that take place in during its tenure of it being put out in issues. You obviously have the Sinestro Corps War, which is absolutely cinematic, completely unexpected. So many deaths, so many just important factors being rewritten for the character of Hal Jordan and Green Lanterns in general. And then you also obviously have Blackest Night, which I am a fan of kind of simplistic horror, and it dives deep into that genre despite it being a DC comic. Definitely keeping you on the edge of your seat and really not knowing what's going to happen and how the heroes are going to win or if they're going to win. Incredible run on the character of Green Lantern. Incredible just title in general. Jeff Johns knocks it out of the park. And if you want to have that one run in your collection that is a DC comic book, in my opinion, this is the one to have. And you definitely have to check it out if you have not read it. I promise you, it will pay off. I can promise you that. But that does wrap up number 3, so we'll head to number 2. And number 2 will be the death and return of Superman, the Omnibus. This has been reprinted a million times. If you want to wait, definitely, I'm sure it will be reprinted again. But what a important story this is. Seeing the most powerful, the most hopeful character in the DC universe losing his life. I don't think I'm spoiling anything there because of the title of the omnibus, but holy cow, the fight with the character of Doomsday, the introduction of the character of Doomsday, the way they thought to even come up with this, which is a story within itself, not understanding how to make the character of Superman relatable or sellable until someone comes with the great idea to just kill him, and they do exactly that, but in the most cinematic way possible. The entire fight between Superman and Doomsday getting more and more cinematic as you read because of the paneling they chose to use. I could honestly talk about this book for ages. Its importance to comic books, the comic book community, the Bronze Age, the Silver Age, the transfer between the two, the trope of characters dying in comic books. Before Jean Grey and Superman, that was unheard of until suddenly they made this a trope. Now we get characters dying every year, but whatever. Definitely such an amazing read. Keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. And then when it comes to the return of Superman aspect of the story, once again, we get mystery elements revolving around each of the characters that come out of the shadows to try and replace Superman, and then the inevitable return of the Man of Steel and the mystery surrounding around that. It is perfectly done, perfectly written. It's been reprinted this many times for a reason. Everybody loves this story. This is not something specific to me, but is definitely worth the read. If you're not a fan of Superman because you find him boring or whatever it may be, this is not boring. You will not be tired reading this. There is action, there is mystery, there is wonder, there's everything you possibly want out of a story between these pages, and it is great. It also features an introduction of one of my other favorite DC superheroes, which is Superboy. Typically my favorite DC superhero is either Superman or Superboy. They can kind of trade, kind of leaning more towards Superboy, but he usually gets bad rep because of licensing and everything like that, which we won't get into, but such a great read. Definitely worth the read. Art is amazing. I mean, I don't need to say anything else. I'm sure either you guys have read this or have heard about this at this point. It's inspired live action movies, animated movies. There was a video game back during Sega Genesis days. This is that great. Everybody loves it. You need to read it if you haven't already. But that does wrap up number 2, so we'll get to my number 1 must-read DC Omnibus, which is probably no surprise to you guys watching, is of course the Infinite Crisis Omnibus. The entire event, I mean, peak comic books, absolutely amazing. Super cinematic. The events that take place in this book, in this entire event in general, have so much stakes, long-lasting stakes at that, or long-lasting repercussions, and because of that, it just holds a very near and dear aspect, or near and dear place to my heart, because it's actually an event that once it wraps up, things are not the same as they used to be. Characters are not the same as they used to be. Even to the point that after Infinite Crisis, the characters of the Trinity, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, taking a year off after the events, the beyond traumatic events that take place. And this is an event that the ripples of it are felt through the entire DC multiverse. Characters from other universes, lives coming to an end, and everyone plays a key factor or an important role during this. From Superman to Superboy, Batman, everyone playing a huge, massive role in this event. And it really kind of gave us a new way to look at things post this event pertaining to DC Comics, and really that nobody is safe. Nobody is ever safe in DC Comics. I think DC definitely is a bit darker than Marvel Comics, and they fully show this. The follow-up 52 is just as good. You have crazy stakes, mysteries, everything like that in that book as well. But in this book, it is beyond thought out, taking so much aspects that have happened in the past, as well as things that have happened in the multiverse, and making them have weight and a cause and an effect to the things that are happening. Not things just happening because they're cool, but because of reasons. And I think that is beyond comic books. I feel like nowadays things just happen because it's cool to see. This was so thought out, and I remember reading it thinking how much it felt like a movie, just because of how each little breadcrumb and puzzle piece led to the next. And it is definitely worth the read, and I highly, highly, highly recommend you checking out this omnibus. This is my favorite event in comic books ever, and it's definitely worth the read. But that does wrap up today's video. I hope I didn't go off on a tangent for too long on each of those books. This kind of era that we were discussing between these omnibuses was really my single issues days. And I read a lot of DC when I was younger. Death of Superman actually being the first comic book that I ever read, ever. So a lot of these books have a lot of importance to me. But comment down below, let me know what you would add to this list, or just comment down below what comic books are important to you. I would love to learn more about you guys and what you actually like pertaining to comics or comic book characters, whatever it may be. But other than that, I truly appreciate you guys watching. If you're not part of the Illuminati, as always, hit that subscribe button to join the community. It is an amazing place, and it's only becoming that much better every day as each of you guys keep joining. Also, if you could do me a favor, hit that thumbs up icon. It helps the algorithm, and in turn helps the channel grow. Really trying to get the channel to 1K subs, which would be awesome. That would be our next milestone. And also, if you did enjoy watching this video and you want to see more like it, you can do yourself a favor and hit that bell icon. That way you can get notified for any content that I put out, whether it's a video like this, a short, or maybe a review. You'll get notified for any of those videos. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate each and every time. And of course, as always, stay nerdy.